Hello, and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And we are through the third game of the 2022 NBA Finals, and the Boston Celtics have jumped out, grabbed the advantage, won game three on their home floor, and go up 2-1. So, Tim, are you ready to recap game three?
It's been an exciting series so far. Let's run it.
Absolutely. We got a ton of stuff to uncover in this game. The Boston Celtics pull away and won 116-100. The Celtics jumped out to a fast lead in the first quarter. The Warriors quickly erased the deficit after the half, but the Celtics, they pulled away in the fourth quarter, and Boston kind of took that, let's not panic, let's calm down, and let's play our style of basketball, and they continued to fight to win the game. And like we said in the game one and game two recap, the way Boston won in game one was by team-oriented play, bunch of guys contributing, not just one person, more than one guy stepping up. And we saw that in spades as Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart all tallied 20 or more points, which was huge. The Celtics also dominated the glass and the paint. They outscored the Warriors in a big way in both of those margins, which was huge in their victory. And on the other side, the Golden State Warriors were only held to 11 points in the fourth quarter. And a big reason for that, Steph Curry not being on the floor late in the game. He was injured on a loose ball when Al Horford rolled up on his leg. He scored 31 points, was the leading scorer in the game. Now, the health of Steph Curry, it's kind of a question mark. They're going to play it by ear, but Steph himself says he'll play in game four. He'll be all right. Klay Thompson, another big contributor for Golden State, broke his slump. He scored 25 points on 17 shots despite the loss. And another big headline in the game is Draymond Green and the Boston.
Good old Draymond.
And there's a lot to talk about there. Klay Thompson with his comments after the game. That's just Boston sports fans being Boston sports fans. And as a Red Sox fan
welcome
myself,
welcome
to Boston, Golden State. And Draymond Green kind of threw up a stinker in game three, only having 2 points. So now going into game four, Steph Curry and the Warriors find themselves in unfamiliar territory as NBA Finals underdogs. And Boston, if they win on their home floor in game four, they will take a commanding 3-1 lead, which is a backbreaker for Golden State, essentially. So, Tim, what do we got from this game?
The first thing that I want to focus on, because we've seen a lot of this out of all three games in this series, is just how important fourth quarter basketball is. And you see the teams that take over the fourth quarter tend to win these games because it's pretty much always going to be at least relatively close, if not close enough where the fact is it's definitely a gap that can be overcome. And you saw in this fourth quarter, this past game, only 11 points out of Golden State, and realistically only 23 out of Boston, which isn't necessarily a great quarter, but when you hold Golden State's offense to 11, it makes it a lot easier for you to overcome that deficit. And you talk about Steph Curry not being on the floor. That's huge. I mean, they've said out in Golden State, anybody that looks at this team, their world runs around Steph. And when they don't have him, it's like, okay, how do we adjust now? How is our offense going to run? And I think a big part of that we've seen in when the Warriors tend to falter is the play of Draymond Green. And we've seen out of these first three games of the series, it really hasn't quite been there, especially these last two, or it might even been, or I think it has been all three. These past three games I've seen, he's had 15 points and 15 fouls. That's not
foul trouble is going
good.
to be big when you get into the end of games, especially down the stretch.
Not only individually, but the fact of the entire team, because now you're putting Boston on the line more, giving them more free points towards the end of games when, okay, you get into the bonus. That really hurts you on the defensive end when you're
it was really big because going into the fourth quarter, the score was 93-89. And at that point,
it's locked up and it's
anyone's ball game. 4 points can be overcome like that, especially with these two offenses and their ability to do.
That could be 45 seconds. Yeah,
exactly. So the foul trouble from Draymond and Steph, who picked up 3 pretty quickly in this game, is also huge. Yeah. The smarter teams that are more careful commit less turnovers, commit less fouls, which Boston was definitely sharper than Golden State on that particular night. typically wins the game. And that's kind of what we saw.
Yeah, I mean, overall, turnovers and free throws win games. And you see the Golden State Warriors, especially in this past
That's
game.
just basketball, dude.
Yeah, exactly. In this past game, you see them turn the ball over a little bit more. They allow Boston to get to the line more. When you allow that, you're digging yourself a deep hole that's difficult to overcome. And with the way that the rest of the game went, it's like there's a lot of things that just didn't go their way, and that leads to a 16-point loss. But I mean, a couple other things to note is the fact you talked about Klay Thompson, bit of a resurgence game. He found his shot a little bit, didn't have like one of his biggest star-studded games, but he scored the ball at a pretty efficient rate. That
it
helps.
Was still nice to see Klay Thompson being the second leading scorer on the Warriors in the game. 25 points is not bad by any stretch of the imagination, and how Klay struggled, it's nice to see.
Yeah, and one of the things that I would actually like to note that I think is he's been a little bit of an unsung hero throughout these games, even though he hasn't necessarily been like the stat stuffer difference maker, is the play of Kevon Looney. He's been a pretty solid, efficient player for the Warriors. For instance, this past game only played 17 minutes, so nowhere near the rest of their starters, but he was 3 for 4 from the floor, and he had 6 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. So in terms of an offense that isn't used to really going through a traditional center,
he's found his ball.
Yeah, he's found his way into the offense to get his shots whenever they're open. He doesn't take anything particularly dumb, and he makes sure that he goes and fights for the glass as well, getting 7 rebounds, which was tied for the team lead with Wiggins. So I mean, I think he's been a pretty solid contributor for them, and I think they're going to need more and more out of him. But overall, I think the biggest need for them right now is both mentally and emotionally, and just in the game of basketball. Draymond Green needs to get back to the efficient playmaker that he can be for this Warriors team. Because even when he's not scoring the ball, when he's playing his best ball, he is a massive key for that offense. Yes, because the ball goes through him a lot, whether it be on screens off the ball, dribble handoffs, things like that. He's a big facilitator for that offense. They need him to get out of his own head and stop worrying about all the antics. And again, that's Draymond Green. It's kind of hard to avoid that.
It's kind of what he's done.
When you have a little bit more focus on the actual game, I think that really can help make a difference and actually help them get over this hump when they've got, all of Boston in their ear the whole game.
Yeah. And for Klay, that is just Boston.
Yeah,
that is how they've always been, and that is how they will most likely
really not much
always
to
will
complain
be.
there. I don't think, because realistically, it's Boston sports, it's Boston basketball. They are a diehard
Tim,
group
I
of
have
fans.
an idea. These Boston fans are too mean. We should move all of the rest of the series back to Golden State, where they're nice and never say anything bad ever.
Yeah, I'm sure Boston fans don't particularly take that lightly. So
yeah, let's have a little bit thicker skin, but that's neither here nor there.
Hey, this upcoming game, though, is going to be massive for this series. Like you talked about, if the Warriors drop to a 3-1 deficit, even with it going back to Golden State, that's tough to overcome. You talk about the availability and overall health of Steph Curry. That's going to be huge to watch over these next couple of days, and just how healthy is he going to be for this next game? Because if the Warriors don't even this series up at 2 apiece and steal one in Boston, they're going to be really in a hole to overcome. I mean, you've seen them give up a 3-1 lead before. It's never out of the question for them to pull something out of the hat for themselves, but it's definitely not a situation you want to get in if you're the Golden State Warriors.
So we'll see how the Warriors respond in Game 4 in Boston. And that's all we got for our Game 3 recap. If you want to watch our preview and our Game 1 and 2 recap, we have those available for you. And we have a ton of other sports stuff, because we don't just cover the NBA. We cover the NFL, baseball, men's basketball, everything you could imagine. So if you want to see more from us, like and subscribe, and we out.